Imagine a helicopter so massive that it could carry more cargo than some planes. A flying machine so big that it made others look small. This is the story of the MiL V-12, the largest helicopter ever built. In 1960s, the Soviet Union needed a way to transport heavy ICBMs, tanks and supplies to remote locations where traditional aircraft couldn't land and conventional helicopters couldn't lift. So Soviet engineers at MiL Design Factory took on a challenge. That challenge was to build the largest helicopter ever. Unlike any other helicopter before it, the MiL V-12 used two massive rotors mounted on wings, instead of a traditional single one. Each rotor had a diameter of 35 meters or 115 feet, powered by 4 turboprop engines. It stretched over 37 meters or 121 feet in length, and stood 12.5 meters or 41 feet tall. To put that into perspective, this behemoth was as long as an Airbus A320 and could carry up to 40 tons, twice the capacity of any helicopter at the time. The first prototype took to the skies in 1968. Despite its enormous size, it flew successfully and even set records. On one test flight, the MiL V-12 lifted an astonishing 44 tons, almost 100,000 pounds, to a height of over 2,000 meters or 6,600 feet. A record that still stands today. Prototypes were only cargo, but they had plans to add 50 fold-down seats. This saves a lot of space when seats are folded. Theoretically, if they filled the whole fuselage with seats, it could lift almost 200 passengers. At least the weight capacity would support that. Its fuselage has a huge internal volume. It is 28 meters long or 91 feet and 4.4 meters or 14.5 feet wide. To put that into perspective, you could almost fit 12 Humvees on the floor plan or a whole apartment. That's incredible. It also had multiple hoist cranes that can lift 10 tons or 20,000 pounds. To avoid the immense task of developing new set of rotors, reduction gears and transmissions, decision was taken to double up the Mi-6 dynamics and to use two sets of Mi-6 engines, gearboxes and lifting rotors side by side, left rotor being the mirror image with a small overlap. The Mi-6 was the largest flying helicopter at that time. It had two 5,500 horsepower Soloviev D25 turboshaft engines. Those engines are upgraded for the V-12. They added additional zero stage and decreased the operating temperature. Those changes raised the power to 6,500 horsepower. The rotor RPM was reduced to 112. The Mi-6 rotor spun at 120 RPM. The gearboxes are interconnected. This was done so they can share the load and the aircraft can still fly even if multiple engines fail. The helicopter was sort of a hybrid, because the struts that hold the rotors doubled as wings, and they can generate lift at higher speeds. The wings are made of light alloy stressed skin construction with 8-degree dihedral. It has sharp inverse taper set at 7 degrees. It was raised in the root and on the tip of the main gears, and it was torque reacted by horizontal bracing connected to the rear of the fuselage. You might be wondering, what is a taper and dihedral? The taper is a wing design that gradually gets thinner along the length. Dihedral is the upward angle of the wings. This creates a stability effect, and it tends to naturally level out the aircraft. At least that's the case in most aircrafts. You are probably wondering, what is a stress skin construction? Well, that is a method used to stress engineers. I'm just joking. The stress skin construction is basically using exterior skin as structure versus having extra ribs or something else from the inside. That method is very efficient. In terms of landing gear, it had 3 of them, 2 main ones and 1 steerable front one, and they are huge. In terms of access points, it had crew door on each side. It also had 3 sliding side doors and a full section rear clamshell with ramp. It also had flaps. Yes, a helicopter with flaps. And not only that, it also had a rudder and elevator. It used them at high speeds. Let's talk about the cockpit. Most planes have a single deck cockpit, but this beast has 2-story cockpit. Yes, a 2-story cockpit. On the bottom it had a pilot, co-pilot and electric system operator, and on the top deck it had a navigator and a radio operator. It featured a hydraulic controls with manual backup. It also had 3-axis autopilot and a mapping radar. Pretty epic. Let's talk about top speed and range. The cruise speed was 240 km an hour or 150 miles an hour, while the top speed was 260 km an hour and 160 miles an hour. The range info is kind of all over the place. Some articles claim 500 km of range or 310 miles, while some other claim 800 km of range or 500 miles of range. Both are probably true based on load. The V-12 name is actually a prototype name. The production name would be the Mi-12. Only 2 of them were ever made. But for all its achievements, the Mir V-12 had problems. It was huge, and maneuvering it in tight spaces wasn't as practical as smaller helicopters. They needed something more versatile. So the Soviet military shifted focus to a smaller, more versatile Mi-26 helicopter. The Mir V-12 never went into production, but its legacy remains. Nowadays, you can see them at 2 museums. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing, and see you next time.